Hawks talking Squawk. So y'all it started happening. It started. Shall we begin? Man. It's like I knew this was going to happen even though I didn't really want it to. But since they've made those recent J-Dub policy changes, now that a lot of J-Dubs is going to switch up and start reaching out. So first, it was my sister last week. Now, we didn't come in contact with one another, but last Saturday was my great uncle's homegoing. So now I wasn't able to make it to the church service because I had a prior engagement, but I was able to make it to the repast. Meanwhile, my sister showed up to the services, like at the church, which, she always goes to the church services. I mean, J-Dubs technically ain't supposed to be in no church, but, you always got a pass for going to church for a homegoing service or a wedding or whatever, especially if it was like close family or whatever. But anyway, sister shows up to the church service. According to my pop, brother, and cousin, she was looking for me and was looking forward to seeing me or whatever. And I'm like, damn, now I wish I would have made it because I would have been anticipated to see how that played out. Because, see, I was never on a time where if one of my J-Dub peeps come up to speak, I wasn't going to be on that time and ignore them or avoid them. But I wasn't going to be the one to make the first move for y'all to try that shit on me. But, yeah, it would have been interesting last week to see how that would have played out. So now yesterday, my boy Luscious hits me up. I ain't talked to Luscious in, when was that? Probably like 2006, 2007. Because my last year or so in the J-Dubs, we had kind of lost contact. It's like he was married and he was going through shit with his first wife or whatever. They had kids or whatever, and they kind of moved like to the outskirts of Philly. So we had just kind of lost contact. But me and Luscious, we're both from Winfield. You know what I mean? Now Luscious was the J-Dub. He was a little more on the wild side. You know what I mean? A lot of times we'd be off with the girls. You know what I mean? He'd be doing his little dirt. Because he knew I wasn't going to say shit. It was nobody's business. And I knew he wasn't going to say shit. And I had shit on him anyway to remind him, nah, you ain't saying shit. But Luscious was never that type. He was never that type to brown nose the elders and go and run his mouth. And that's why we always got along for the most part. The only issue with me and Luscious, it was really because of Nad Raj. You know what I mean? But that's another story for the Nad Raj versus Luscious story that I'll do sometime. Because I know a couple of people have been in my inbox like, man, Luscious and Nad Raj, those are some interesting characters. And I would tell them, man, you don't know the half. Like, I could probably fuck around and do a whole 90-minute video on the escapades between them. But anyway, this is about, you know what I mean, the interaction I had with Luscious. Now, he hits me up. I get a lot of messages on Facebook and Instagram. So my brother always sends me stuff on Instagram. So I'm checking out some stuff he sent me. And it was saying that you get the request that somebody's trying to send you a message. And I see who it is. Now, Luscious, he's a wild boy. You know what I mean? I'm not going to put his Instagram handle out there, but he inboxed that I knew from the profile picture and just the name that it was him. So he reached out like, yo, E, long time, you know what I mean? How you been? Blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, oh shit, it's like I thought I had to think about it for a minute. Like, how should I respond? So, because it's been, you know what I mean, about maybe 17, 18 years since the last time we had contact. Nah, 16 years. I take that back. When I said my last year or so in a cult, I hadn't really talked to Luscious, but I forgot we had seen each other one last time right before I left. This was like right after I turned 25, so it had to be like early October of 2008. It was like right before I left, so I take that back. But either way, it's been almost 16 years since we talked. So, you know what I mean, we chatting it up back and forth through the chat. Now, I remind you, this was yesterday, like early afternoon. And he's like, well, what are you doing right now? And I'm like, I'm handling some business right now, but around 4 o'clock, I could be free, you know what I mean? And you know, I usually go out to the platform and go see some of my folks that might be out there. And you're like, damn, you still play the plat. That's always been your spot. I'm like, you already know I'll go out there, you know what I mean? Might link up with one of my peeps that might be out there. A lot of times on a Friday around that time, and it wasn't really that warm yesterday. Like, it was a nice day to be out in the park, but it wasn't all crazy. So, like, the park was kind of mild yesterday. Like, it was a few folks out there. So I was like, why don't you meet me out at the Platte? Because he lives out there, like in Lansdowne. And he was like, yeah, me and Jeff, we was working out. Jeff, you know what I mean, he's also J-Dub. I really don't know what he's doing with himself. We kind of fell out too. That's a story for the Luscious Naraj saga. But I'm like, yeah, if you can meet me out at the Platte, because at this time it was like 2 o'clock. I mean, you meet me out there around 4, that'd be cool. So we linked up out there, you know what I mean, sparked something up. He talking about he don't smoke like that. I'm like, man, look, this is a special occasion. We got put one in the air like we used to do back when we was young. So, you know what I mean, we caught up. He got a few kids now on his second marriage. That's John's. He's saying, I mean, it's funny because his current wife looks a lot like his first wife. So I'm like, yeah, Luscious, you definitely have a type. He said he doesn't really keep in touch with Sheaf and them like that. And like, he'll talk to them like here and there, because, you know, they don't have, Sheaf and Naraj, they don't do social media. You know what I mean? A lot of J-Dubs, they still don't really do social media. You know what I mean? Luscious now, he's working, you know what I mean? Still with the unions. You know what I mean? Works out, and he has his kids. So it ain't like we those same young boys in our teens and early 20s. You know what I mean? So, like I said, it was good catching up, but you know what I mean? He stayed out there for maybe about an hour. Then after he left, I sat with a little while longer. I was going to actually do the video yesterday while it was fresh, but while after Luscious left, I got a phone call, and the rest of the time I was out, I was on the phone, and I just went on home. Because I'm right there in Winfield Heights, so I'm like 6-7 minutes from the park. That's why I'm always out there. But yeah, it was good. You know what I mean? Catching up. We reminisced about the old days. You know what I mean? Basically just talked about everything in between since our last contact. You know, he told him about my ventures, how I'm doing my thing. You know what I mean? In the XJ Dub community. And he's like, damn, you on that apostate tip. You know what I mean? I laughed. I'm like, man, come on. Even when I was in, a lot of people knew that I wasn't going to last in this shit. I knew I wasn't going to last in it. That's why when people would question my spirituality or my dedication to the religion, I never took it personal. I'm like, damn, they must really see through me. But you know, I mean, it was good catching up. But now it's like, I wonder who else is going to reach out. You know, but it was good reminiscing, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? His parents are still good. They still at the crib right off Winfield Ave. You know what I mean? The sister, she's been traveling with, to serve with Adidas Greater, and she's in a, I think he said sign language congregation or Portuguese, one of those. I think it was a sign language congregation for the Portuguese or something like that. But you know, I mean, it was good seeing a homie. I told him, I said, dog, when I do my J-Dub piece and I take it to the big screen, I'm definitely going to have somebody betray you, because you is a wild boy. Now, Luscious, he's the one, when I be mimicking him, he's like, what are you talking about? It's me, Luscious. Yeah, that's Luscious. But like I said, me and Luscious never really, you know what I mean? We always got along for the most part. And our only real rivalry was on a basketball court, because we were like kind of the same kind of player. We were like kind of the same build. I was always a little more stockier, but Luscious was kind of stocky himself. And we was about the same height. So on the courts, we would have battles, because we always played against each other, because he swore he was better than me, but everybody knew I was better than him. He just stood out more on the court because he did a lot of talking and more showboating. See, my game was simple. You know what I mean? I didn't try to do all that showboating shit, trying to show off to impress motherfuckers. That was, you know, Luscious was that kind of dude on the court. But it's funny because he wanted to be West Park. He went to the Winfield congregation. Now, Winfield and West Park, we all met in the same building at 61st and Haverford. But before then, Winfield was going to the Kingdom Hall over there on 54th and Westminster with West Chestnut and Northwest. But then around 2001, they moved over to the building on the Kingdom Hall at 61st and Haverford, and they was there with us in Overbrook. And I remember we was mad as shit. Like, me and my West Park homies and my Overbrook homies, we was mad as shit because for the longest, it was just West Park and Overbrook meeting at 61st and Haverford. That means on Sunday we had the 9:30 and the 12:30 meetings. When Winfield came, they automatically got pushed to the 3:30 slot. Like that first year. But then the second year it rotated, and Overbrook was going at 3:30. But then that third year, when we got switched to 3, that's when they changed the times, and it went from 9:30, 12:30, and 3:30 to, no, matter of fact, when Winfield first came, they changed it from 9:30 to 9, then from 12:30 to 12, and the later meeting was at 3, so it was 9, 12, and 3. But we was all mad as shit, like, damn, now, because nobody wanted to go to no 3 o'clock meeting on no Sunday. Especially during, you know what I mean, football season. But even at 3 o'clock, you got out at 5, but still, like, you did, the Eagles game come on at 1. So if you had the 3 o'clock meeting, you got to, like, leave the house at halftime. You know? But yeah, I remember that. But eventually when they sold the building and West Park went down to 43rd in Haverford, I forgot where Winfield went back to Westminster. That's what happened. But Luscious was always at West Park's meetings. Especially when we was all in the same building. He was always at our meetings. He was like, man, our congregation boring. But the thing is, Winfield had just as many young folks as West Park did, but they were like more at Winfield. All the young guys kind of stuck together, like Luscious, Jeff, Johnny, you know what I mean, the old head Damien, the Mitchell brothers, Greg and his younger brother Kyle. It's like they was like, you know what I mean, they all played ball together or whatever. And then you had the group of girls. It was kind of similar to West Park. But yeah, Luscious was always at West Park's meetings. You know what I mean? Well, we went to a lot of the Winfield meetings too. I remember it was the one time where the presiding overseer at Winfield, he forgot to book a public speaker. So they started off with the watchtower, because you know a lot of times, say the speaker was running late, they would always start with the watchtower, then end with the public talk. So they did that on this day, and we're thinking, oh, the speaker must be running late or whatever. Meanwhile, the PO, he's panicking in the back, trying to find the speaker to no avail. Then he comes out and be like, oh, that's on me, blah, 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 laughing and joking. I forgot the book of public speaker. We was like, hey, we get out an hour earlier, so that was cool for us. But yeah, like I was telling them yesterday, I said, man, we had some good ass times together back in the early 2000s, like from like 2000 to like 2003. You know what I mean? Didn't even, like, after that part, we had kind of drifted off. Like I said, I'm going to discuss that in the next video about Luscious and Narrage. But, and I also discuss how, you know what I mean, Narrage managed to drive a wedge between a lot of people. But back to Luscious, yeah, because we was both from Winfield, and we really met through my cousin Sheaf, because him and Sheaf and Luscious really came up together. They both went to man school, then they both went to BWAP, then they both went to George Washington Carver, ENS, right there down, I think it's 17th and Diamond, somewhere down there. And so they always kind of knew each other, and I met Luscious through him and was playing basketball the first time I had met him. Always had kind of knew his boy Jeff, though, because Jeff lived down 52nd and Diamond, right down the street from me. So we always used to play ball over across the street at St. Barbara's together. And when the homie Nick would bring his basketball courts out, he had 2 little portable Jones, and we would be running full court right there over there at St. Barbara's, or sometimes right there on George's Lane. Cars couldn't even come down the strip. We'd be running full court games. So then was me and Luscious got cool. Luscious started hanging around Diamond Street all the time. And Luscious also lived around the corner from my homie Dolph. You know what I mean? So And I remember when I at first met Luscious, he was saying he was cool with Dolph, and I'm like, oh yeah, Dolph, that's my homie from Brook, whatever. But there's like, man, it's like now I just wonder who's going to reach out next. You know, because I know they coming, and as they keep easing up on these policy changes, I just know more and more people are going to start reaching out. You know what I mean, with those new changes. But first, my sister inquiring about me. And from what my brother told me, she seemed disappointed that I didn't show up. You know, my pop would have loved to see us talking. But, you know what I mean, it is what it is. You know what I mean, I'll keep y'all posted on anybody else reaching out. But this was some Hawks talking Squawk. Like this video, share the video, subscribe to the channel. Stay tuned for more content. Hawk out.